This entire reading is for Kat. Light souls. Light souls would make a good tattoo. I have too many tattoo wishes. Not enough skin. Kat said that. Her musings are my nourishment, and I feed on them like a cruise ship buffet. I want to eat everything on the captain's table, including the candlesticks and crucifixions. There is nothing worse than running out of words when in the middle of a rant or a verbose declaration of love. I watched from afar as she fought the gusts of windmill and turbine with only her moxie and untrammeled Scottish will. Stop the presses. I want to change the headline to something more upbeat and far more delightful than the usual dumbed-down news of the Dionysian night. The days have been kicking me in the teeth as I gum another mayonnaise sandwich, and I recall when I could afford sushi, like it was just raw fish, and not some luxury item like healthcare. Her tattoos call to me as if from another age, when cheaper than a dozen didn't get you 5 to 10, and the universal mind was respected and not condemned. Katie doesn't question my motives because she knows I'm not here to hurt her, but only to support and witness a starling as she blossoms exponentially. There is nothing more satisfying than meeting a soulmate, even if they're in another country and not available to date or cavort, as our light souls educate us on our endless possibilities to transform into stardust. Wabbit. Adjective. Scottish. Predicative. Exhausted or slightly unwell. I'm feeling a bit wabbit. Told me wabbit was my next poem, and I followed her lead because she hasn't been wrong yet. Leads me by my consonants and vowels like a roulette wheel to the liberated stars. I was broken, I was down, and I was busted. And only her context pulled me through the meat and the potatoes storm. Potatoes au gratin. Came out of the FBI. Came out of the Facebook ether like a traveling salesman in a Maisels documentary, where youth springs eternal once you open the gray door and you buy a Bible from a thief in the gas chamber night. They broke the windows, and they did their worst because vigilante justice is oftentimes the only way to make your point when justice has become skewed for those wearing white pointy hoods. Sometimes I like to go out into the middle of the street like Mary Tyler Moore. I like to throw my hat up in the air and I scream, "I am a Jew, hear me roar!" Nothing feels better than when the invisible self sits on my invisible lap and we swap stories of our storied childhoods. When you find someone who champions you, no matter how apoplectic you are, it's time to put a ring on their finger and settle down. Even though I'm not scattish, I'm a little scattish. Even though I'm not Scottish, I knew what she meant when saying she was feeling quite wobbly and wabbit. And it made me wish I could hold her tight until she again felt right, or the world burned all around us. Nestled in the crane of your neck. I right, I wrong. None of it makes any difference anyhow. Simple syrup, high fructose crack, lost in the pavement of your vaudeville love. I want to make love to her when we're both asleep. My best lines come when consciousness is slapped down hard. What I desire and what I have settled for are cosmos apart. I'm wrong. I am right. None of it makes any difference now. This poem is entitled Unanswered Questions. It's a rhetorical poem. Just kidding. I don't bully. Got milk? Chased. Somnambulist, cattle rustler, nothing up my sleeve. Patient zero, killing ground, paradise reassembled. I don't drink. Got whiskey? Tuckered out. Naked dreaming. Not liberated enough to sleep naked. It's on my bucket list with going to Amsterdam and being punched out by a kangaroo. I literally think of your breasts. Poetic license, it only takes me so far before I'm carried away by the grammar police. You've drawn the boundaries in sidewalk chalk. I bless the rains down in Africa. Jumping rope, it leaves me tangled up in blue. Not forward thinking enough to stop masturbating. It's all in the twist of the wrist and the stellar glide of your arched back in the pained moonlight. I know when the lights go out. Your inhibitions stop playing hard to get. Shame on me for thinking of you in a physical sense. When I heard your voice, it was all over for me. It channels future memories. I cannot wait to live and relive endlessly. That's a true story. I've been writing poetry for 35 years. I'm 14. Can you believe it? I started writing poetry when I was 14, and the first poem was about the moon. We had this white, I think it was Formica table in my parents' house, and I wrote a poem about the moon, and I think it had something to do with that round table. I've met a lot of muses in my life, a lot of muses. And Kat, she stands alone. Thank you for seeing me. And that's not only because she puts up with me, but she does. And that's nice. The poetry is right here, waiting to be peeled like a grape. I was catatonic, nonplussed. I was broken into sections of bitter resentment. You exploded upon my cosseted scene like a freedom rider into the segregated South. I don't want to stop believing, but sometimes you have no other choice. In fact, that's not true, and belief must be never-ending, like Mickey Mouse's enthusiasm. She appeared before me as a hologram, and I knelt down like Elvis, and I seriously prayed. This poem is coming out in fits and starts, like a murder of crows, or the assassination of a very bad peanut. I watched him from afar as he painted the burning visions in his wheat field head. He did it with his guitar. She poured the turpentine onto her thirsty brushes like it was Gatorade and took a sip. I want to drink from Kat's loving cup while wearing a blindfold and smoking a non-filtered unlucky cigarette. There's nothing wrong with channeling ghosts, as long as the ghosts don't go postal and turn you into a haunted house. She told me you were shy, but nothing. Now let's start that again. You told me you were shy, but nothing could have been further from the truth. When you taught me a new language, with your hands and your feet bound to my consciousness. Chuffed. She always teaches me new words. She really is teaching me a new language. Taught me a new word, showed me the sun by opening her heart. Listening to The Fool on the Hill, Bobby Gentry never sounded better. You trained me with your eyes and lips. I'm not a dragon or a broken paperclip. The window was open, so I climbed inside. Katie's dreams welcomed me in like Nixon in China. Showed me the way with empowered gestures of bravery. Her cowardly lion and my Toto hung out in Technicolor. Once upon a time, I partied with drag queens in the Tenderloin. I don't write poetry, and that's why most poets ignore me like the plague. The words cut into the page like a samurai sword or electric toothbrush. She shook my hand and calmed my fears with her feminine wiles. She taught me about God, undressed in the moonlight and rose like a new sun. She eclipsed my night terrors by making love to me with aggression and the rhythm and blues method. There's no pretending in a world of Mondays. We're all slaves to time, even though time doesn't know we exist. She made friends with Sisyphus, and then the boulder was her only concern. Feeling zeal over the big ticket items, while the smallest of the small slips between the cracks and is reflected by a room full of mirrors. Are you experienced? Plodding through the mystery of why we exist is such a heavy slog, especially when philosophy has never interested us in the least little bit, and our crisis body shames us before we're even halfway through our victim statement. Fuck you, Harvey Weinstein. The police told me there's no use pretending the culprit would be caught because criminals will be criminals, and life intentionally cracks us up. My glass has always been shattered, like it's some Jewish wedding or bank robbery, where the takeaway isn't ass or grass, but instead our own unremarkable lives. I so badly wanted to trade punches with the champ, but he was out for repairs. So I settled for the next best thing, and I shot Groucho Marx in my chicken pajamas. How Groucho got in my pajamas, I'll never know. Poetry doesn't leave you in the lurch. Neither does suicide if you do it right the first time. I was so hopped up on the next big thing, I forgot all about the shit that I once... I forgot about all the shit that I was once so over the moon about. Nothing stays charged forever, not even an iPhone. And everything remains in lockstep and locked down in a perpetual downward spiral of flop sweat. My father once informed me I was a survivor, and that kept me going for about a decade, until I ran out of gas and a sense of humor in San Francisco on Cleveland Avenue. The band I was traveling with had had enough of me and my obtuse strangulations. Before you know it, they rubbed me out like a tombstone. that just wants to disappear into the bird's eye frozen ground. The peak show dancer, she wasn't interested in my excuses for not having correct change. As she closed her window and left me holding my blue balls and Sharpie fine permanent marker. We're all slaves to Father Time and his family of vulture capitalists. She made friends with the music in her head because she was convinced it was the only way to stay in touch with the fire in her belly. The status quo, just another last-ditch reminder that being human isn't all it's cracked up to be, when even Mother Nature has turned her benevolent back on us. Experience ecstasy. I follow the light as it lights the herb, carries me away to a la carte skies. Words like silent Harold Lloyd's thrill with their sequenced autonomy. This Valentine chose you, not the other way around, so you needn't worry about the backlash. Ordered a brownie, and I'm still anticipating the perfect moment to visit it with my mouth, teeth, and tongue. You're the only acrobat I've ever witnessed fly through the air who I believed would land safe and sound in their own bed. Going to the circus isn't what it was once cracked up to be. Even when I was a child, all I can remember is the fear a clown would break loose and force me to have a good time. I wasn't at Woodstock, but if I had been, I would have told that young girl to put her top back on. Experiencing ecstasy, it keeps you on your toes, as the music drowns out the meaning and hidden agendas go the way of metered immigrants. I've had enough of America the Beautiful becoming America the Malignant. The very second he became president, standards were eradicated, and rage became an acceptable tool in our toolbox to wipe out communication and build unnecessary walls. I followed her fire as she got in bed, and we snuggled together like two mad scientists in search of their next major discovery. She always graded me on a curve, which kept me looking swell in both of our brownie batter eyes. Standing over the kitchen sink, choking on smoke, and dreams never quite reconciled. Looking for a couple more to read. Even in the 21st century, I happen to still be stuck in the 20th century. Starling. Bright colors, works to her advantage, aluminum foil starlings, intellect weaponized, hand-holding intoxicants, flame-broiled sadness, Phoenix capsized Titanic, batten down the hatches, abandoned theaters, mute strangers, chemical imbalance, resistant to changing partners, entropy squirrels gnaw at our crinkly consciences. I want to go the distance. I swear to God I do. I'm so lonesome I could cry. I think I'm telling the truth, or maybe I'm not. I don't fucking know. We're going to end this reading with Scottish Gypsy. All these poems, as I said, were for Kat. I want to taste you. It's never about the punctuation, because who really desires to stop? My words are intended to shake your timbers and leave you unmasked and naked in a puddle on the floor. It's time to shoot the moon and kill another white racist president. It's time to bring down the world by ceasing and desisting from the red, white, and blue hypocritical politics of a country that never actually cared about taking care of its own. I'm not a fucking patriot, so you don't have to waste those empty words on me. I refuse to waste this one life on anything like dying for my country, because my country gave up on me when I still had red hair and freckles covered my body like a red sheet. I need to freeze out all these destructive voices in my head and focus only on the rainbows between my webbed toes. I desire for her to suffocate me with all of her non-weight in her eyes that drill holes so deep into my skull bank you'd think we'd hit China before too long. I know tasting her's out of the question, and yet I still cannot stop thinking about the sweetness of her sweat and the tang of her electric Kool-Aid pulsating personality. My reputation has always preceded me, always. That's just the way it goes when you're Jewish and you're Sicilian, which means you kill people and then you later feel guilty about it. There's no bones about it. Threading a needle with a camel that looks like Salvador Dali is even harder than it may sound, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, and try again, before giving up and fetching a liquid refreshment. I was buked and I was scorned, like every torch singer, poet, troubadour before me. And still, I did my best to cross the desert, because I knew manna from heaven was not always a certainty, or for that matter, a foregone conclusion in these days of boxed wine and plastic roses. I got to get back up on the pony, ride into Jerusalem before it's too late and there are no more rooms at the inn. Joseph and Mary gave up on me in part because I don't look like either one of them, and also because they knew this savior business was a sticky wicket to get enmeshed in. From the very start, I wasn't looking forward to being crucified, because there's not enough sunscreen to cover my sins. And when it comes to my father forsaking me, I truly expected no less from a dad who was absentee right from the very beginning. You know how I feel about you, Kat. I want to thank you. Thank you for inspiring me. And thank you for letting me share those poems with you. Thank you.